Lives Matter movement was a battle cry and a call to arms, and Asian and Pacific Islanders answered that call.
I truly believe what my sign says, like, all lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter.
Livia Fu is at a Brooklyn rally marking the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's death.
I couldn't let today pass and not honor George Floyd and all the people that have been killed by police in some way, so I really wanted to make sure I showed up.
And when 8 people of Asian descent were killed in the Atlanta area spa shootings amid a rising tide of anti-Asian hate crimes in the U.S., Black Americans showed up too.
We're on your side, always will be, always have been.
Historians say this is solidarity born from different but parallel fights against racism.
Presently and in contemporary society, it's really come out of this large anti-hate movement that is taking place in our country. And we've seen these kinds of coalition and allyship taking place in American history before with various groups of people.
The abolitionist Frederick Douglass advocated for Chinese immigration in the late 1800s. Black leaders backed Philippines' independence in the Philippine-American War and opposed the Vietnam War. And Asian Americans were a part of the civil rights movement of the 1960s. But that's not to say that this relationship hasn't been a complicated one. In fact, it has historically been fraught with tension and hostility. And civil and human rights experts say this is rooted in U.S. policies that pitted these communities against each other, such as during the Japanese internment period when African Americans took over Japanese homes, and the Los Angeles riots that saw clashes between Korean and African Americans. From immigration restrictions and racial segregation to policing and the model minority myth, historians and race relations experts say U.S. policies had established racial hierarchies, with white Americans at the top and everyone else below jockeying for position.
You know, what benefits white supremacy is creating a divide and conquer mentality among different communities and different groups.
Because, that's part of the practice of white supremacy, is that the othering, in order to be accepted into the quote unquote mainstream or the white mainstream, then you have to, also join in with the stereotyping of all other groups of people.
But there is hope that the solidarity we're seeing today could mark a turning point in America's racial reckoning.
The more and more that we recognize the multifacetedness of each individual, and I think that's being celebrated more and more than it has been ever in the past, people are able to come together more because we're not just looking at each other based on one part of identity or in one category.
And strength is in their numbers. Liling, CGTN, New York.